first thing I'd like to share is my story and how I got into raw foods, because I think that's really important to have, a strong basis for being in raw foods and have a strong reason why you're doing raw foods. And I got into raw foods actually because I had a health crisis in my life. And I had spinal meningitis. I just remember waking up in intensive care and the doctors were telling me that, you have spinal meningitis and you might not make it out of here alive. I mean, I did ask them, like, when will I be out of here? It's like, well, you might not make it out of here. And to be in your 20s, mid-20s, and for that to happen, that's a real wake-up call. Because I was like, oh yeah, I'm healthy. When you're in your 20s and you're younger, you think you're invincible, you could do anything, I mean, I used to jump out of windows as a kid, my parents' house and everything, and, but then that was a big reality check. So at that point I was in the hospital and I was like, oh my God, I might not make it out of here. I'm like, geez, and then I had a lot of time to think because I'm just lying there. Just trying to get better. I was in an IV and just doing conventional therapy at the time. And the doctors couldn't guarantee I was going to get out of there. They could give me antibiotics and stuff, but I think I had the viral, kind, which antibiotics won't be effective. So it was basically up to, I think, higher powers that I'm actually here alive today to share this message with you. And so I really thought about things when I was in the hospital. Like I thought about, well, my goal in life was to get this 1969 Corvette with T-tops and have $1 million and, have a dog and wife and kids and all this stuff. And I was like, even if I had the $1 million, like, we're all kind of led to believe that what the American dream is, having money and all this stuff. What good would it do me now being in the hospital? Could I write the doctor the check for $1 million, Mr. Doctor, $1 million, only cash if I walk out alive, I could write him a check, but he couldn't still guarantee, even with the most money in the world, guarantee that I was alive. So I really had a change of values at that point in my life. Instead of like valuing what I thought everybody should be valuing in the U.S., like money and things like that, I really valued my health because I almost lost my health. And so I think that was a pivotal point in my life on my focus in life. So after that point, I got out. I was happy to be alive. And when I was actually leaving the hospital, the doctor said that I could get a reoccurrence. It's not like kind of cancer when you get cancer and then you could get it again. He said basically the reason why I got the meningitis was because I have basically he called it a Complement Immune Deficiency syndrome, which is basically he blamed my disease on bad genes or, a compromised immune system. Well, I had known I had a compromised immune system, not directly, but indirectly my whole life because I was born with asthma, allergies, and a dry skin condition. So those are all like immune system related diseases, basically. So at that point, he offered me a shot. He's like, well, we could give you, a vaccination to, help, you not get the meningitis again. And at that point, I didn't want to really believe anything they were telling me because he couldn't guarantee that I was going to be able to walk out of the hospital, when I was in there. So I didn't take it. I said, thank you. And I left and I went about my business. And I knew in the back of my head that I knew I needed to find something to, do what I'm doing better. Because at that point I was, a pretty good vegetarian who ate, chicken and fish sometimes and read my ingredient labels and, thought I was, shopped at health food stores and thought I was doing things the best I could, but I still got sick. So, then that made me think about like, well, maybe I could be doing things a little bit better. And I didn't know what it was at that point. I had some other things going on in my life. I was transitioning with my job. I was working for a corporation. So I moved to Alabama for 3 months, actually, which is a nice hiatus. But while I was in Alabama, this is when my health, everything I started learning about health started to kick in. I had a lot of spare time when I was in Alabama, and I watched a lot of TV, talk shows and late night TV, and I saw Jay Kordich, the Juice Man. How many people know the Juice Man? All right, a couple people, great. Well, he came before Jack LaLanne and Jack LaLanne's juicer. So I saw Jay Kordich on the infomercial talking about his juicer and how, you could, have more energy, lose weight, build your immune system, with juicing. And when I heard build your immune system, I'm like, well, I need to do that. He's a very personable guy and convincing. So I got on the phone and ordered the juicer, and then the lady says, well, it'll be there in 3 weeks. I'm like, 3 weeks? I need it now, I need to start juicing today. She's like, well, it'll be there in 3 weeks. So then I was like, well, man, what do? I need to start juicing today. So I went to my local Walmart in Alabama. And as luck would have it, they had a juicer, and it was on clearance sale for, I don't know, $27. So I got it. I was like, oh, yeah, man, this is way cheaper than that juice man I bought. But let's just use this for now. So I brought it home and started juicing with it. And I remember putting like parsley through there, and the motor stopped, and it just started like smoking. And I'm going, man, I'm just doing what the guy did on TV, and what's going on here? And I was like, and then I noticed when I was juicing like strawberries, like I would get a little juice and a lot of pulp, and it just wasn't very efficient. So I'm like, maybe this thing's defective, and that's why I was on clearance. So I took it back, and as luck would have it, they had one more. So I got that other one, brought it home, same thing happened. So then I just kind of figured, well, maybe these juicers are cheap and weak, and they just don't work well, and that's why they're so cheap. And it's probably good if you're going to juice once in a while, but I was really committed to doing it like every day. So finally the juice man came, and I started juicing, and it worked great. And I basically would cut out my breakfast, and I started juicing for breakfast. And then I'd have my normal lunch, and then I'd juice in the afternoon, and then I'd have my normal dinner meal. So I mean, that was mostly a vegetarian diet, eating some chicken and fish at that time. I didn't really know what a vegetarian diet was, clearly. But I thought I ate healthy, you know, like most people. If you ask them, do you eat healthy? Oh yeah, I eat healthy. But you know, to me, healthy is a lot different, from my opinion now, from what I thought it was then. So I got into juicing, and the juicing was the first step in how I got into raw foods. With the Juice Man juicer came 6 cassettes with the juicer, and on each cassette he talked about different things. So he'd give juicing recipes for skin and nails, juicing recipes for, you know, respiratory issues, juicing recipes for constipation. But on the first cassette tape, he talked about something really interesting that I'll never forget to this day. He said, the one thing that prematurely ages you faster than anything else is cooked foods. Don't put cooked foods in your body. And I remember hearing that in Alabama, sitting in my room on a little radio, it was a radio cassette player, like a small little thing. And I thought to myself, I mean, like, thinking back to like kindergarten when I saw, you know, the 4 food group poster on the wall. I'm like, and everybody I know, you know, cooks their food, my parents, my teachers, and everybody. I was like, this guy's a wacko. He's telling me not to cook my food. Who's this guy? And I was like, I was not ready for the message. I hit stop on the cassette tape, you know, flipped it over and hit play, and, you know, was into his juicing recipes, but wasn't ready for the raw food message at that point. But little did I know, you know, making fresh juices is raw foods. So I got introduced, you know, slow introduction. Then later I basically moved back to California. I was actually at a place called Alvarado Street Bakery, and they actually had a health food store connected to the bakery, because the bakery is actually in the same town that I live in. And they would sell fresh produce and supplements and just a regular health food store. And on the bottom shelf, there is a book called Cleanse and Purify Thyself by Dr. Richard Anderson. And in the book, basically, I picked up the book and hadn't read a book since college. And it talked about colon cleansing, and if you cleanse your colon, you know, you're going to be healthier, because, you know, it said death begins in the colon and all these different things. And it talked about, you know, skin conditions and, you know, clearing up psoriasis and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, you know, I've had a skin condition, eczema and ichthyosis, since I was a child. And I mean, even when I was a kid, the doctors would give me hydrocortisone, you know, creams and different ointments and things to put on, and nothing ever helped. And my pediatrician, Dr. Messina, would always say, John, okay, because I mean, I would get teased as a child about my dry skin, because, you know, I was different. And it wasn't too fun. So I really didn't like my dry skin condition, and the doctors always told me, you know, after all the creams and medicines he gave me wouldn't work, he said, John, when you're 13, you know, your hormones are going to kick in and you will grow out of your skin condition. So I mean, I took doctor's word as gold, and like every year, you know, okay, I'm 10, okay, still got the skin condition, 11, you know, still got the skin condition, 12, okay, 13, and woke up on that morning, oh my God, my skin's the same. Like, what's going on? And so like I had this for my whole life. And depending on, you know, reflecting on it back now, I would notice that if I ate certain foods like meats and especially dairy, probably more dairy actually, my skin would get really bad, and I would have cracks and it'd almost bleed, and it was like really bad. But I really didn't realize, you know, the dietary impact at that point, you know. But anyways, so that's just how bad it was. So I figured, I read this book, and the guy says, you know, it'll clear up your skin condition, and it said, you know, it'll build and boost your immune system, which is I know what I needed, because I didn't want to have to be back in the hospital and, you know, have something happen again. And it says in the book that you should be juicing for about 6 months to alkalinize your body so that you could handle, you know, this cleanse. And I had been juicing for 6 months just about when I picked up this book. And so I went on this program. It was basically a cleanse program with, you know, psyllium and bentonite and herbs, which is the main thing. And every hour and a half, you're supposed to, you know, make a psyllium bentonite shake or take some herbs or, you know, drink a lot of water. And for the first time when I took the cleanse, it says in the cleanse you can drink as much fresh juice as you want. But somehow, and I don't know why, I missed reading that the first time, so I drank as much fresh water as I wanted. So you could all imagine that, doing this cleanse and drinking water, it was probably a lot more potent than, diluting it down with having some juice, because I did try the cleanse later with juice and I didn't have the same effect. But I remember just waking up one morning, taking a shower, and looking at my body, and my skin was 100% cleared up. And I just started crying in the shower because, like, no doctor could ever do that for me. And it just meant so much. And then at that point there, in the book also, he says that if you're going to go back to eating the way you ate before the cleanse, you're just going to toxify your body up and you're going to have, the same problems. So at that point there, I knew that, I need to stick with raw foods, because in the book, he also advocated raw foods. And that was the second time I heard it. And then I figured maybe he's onto something. And when my skin cleared up, I knew that was what I needed to do.